All right, I'd like to call to order the Village of Marvin Parks, Recreation, and Greenway Board meeting here on Tuesday, June 6th at 9:03 a.m. First item is to determine we have a quorum, and with the Jens, Bob, and Christina, as well as our council liaison, Kimberly, we do have a quorum. The adoption of the agenda, everybody's seen the agenda. Any questions, edits, or updates that anyone is requesting? Do I hear a motion on the table to adopt the agenda as it is written?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All right.
Who seconded that? I apologize.
Bob did.
Bob did. Thank you.
Next item on the agenda is the adoption of the previous minutes. These are the minutes from May 2nd, 2023. They were in our packet. Do I hear a motion on the table to adopt the May 2nd, 2023 minutes as they are written?
So moved. Seconded.
All in favor say aye. Okay. Moving on, we've got public comment period. Did anyone sign up for public comment? No? Okay.
You're good.
And we're not doing anything online, so. Moving on, we've got section B, and the first item is the introduction of new staff members, so I'll turn that over to Austin.
Sounds good. Good morning, everybody. Very excited to share. We have two new staff members. First up, we have Matt McManus, our Public Works Superintendent. Super thrilled to have him. He's stepping more into Derek's role. We also have Tyler Honeycutt, our Recreation Activities Coordinator. He is our new Grand Poobah of Marvin Day, so remember him fondly. He came back. He came back after Marvin Day. That is just, we're just thrilled. Very glad to have them. Guys, if you want to say something, introduce yourselves, tell them a little bit of your background, you're more than welcome to.
They don't want to.
Not all at once.
We're very glad to have you.
Glad to have you regardless.
I will say I crowned Tyler with a crown and a scepter at Marvin Day this past year. And it's on video it's recorded forever, so he can't back out.
See us after the meeting for the video and photos.
But will he dress like an elf? That'll be the
Oh,
big test.
no, that'll always be Austin.
That's a good question, John.
You're not going to let him take your elf
Well,
position.
on behalf of the board, thank you guys for joining on, and look forward to working with you folks in the future. All right, next is an update on trails and greenways.
I don't have anything. I wasn't sure if Hunter was going to be here, so I think we can move on for this one. Don't have an update
Okay.
today.
All right. The next is unfinished business. One is discussion of Marvin Gardens Pocket Park. And I guess I'll start that. We had some conversation last meeting around, the direction that we want to go with, what we think we can do there. And I think a number of us hadn't necessarily seen it for a while, so I know that I took the opportunity to kind of stop by and walk around there and take a look at it again. And I did note, the more kind of formal access now that it gives to the folks at Weddington Chase, considering that they're right there. And that made me kind of think, too, I know in the past couple of years, we've had some discussions around some of the changes that are going to go on with Providence Road, potentially making that shopping center a little bit more accessible by foot to some of the other neighborhoods as they put in some sidewalks on Providence Road with the planned widening and so forth. So, I did take a look at it, but any impressions that any of you folks have had since we kind of last discussed, and anyone with a chance to take a look at it?
I went out this morning. It's overgrown. The sidewalks are overgrown with weeds. We have 3 dead junipers. We have 3 dead trees. So that's the state of it right now, and it's not being used, nor would anybody want to use it. And the pathway from Weddington Chase, in my opinion, is just access to Publix. It's not access to that park. Nobody's going to use that park, in my opinion. And I'm not in favor of spending much money, if any, against this. I just don't see it being used. But that's my opinion.
Following our last meeting, I did reach out to the HOAs for Weddington Chase, Thurl Farms, Willow Creek, and Providence Glen. I got none of them responded. So no one had any feedback for what they would like to see
But
from the
they
park.
had feedback before, right? They wanted more, I thought they wanted some kind of cleanup or access or something. Good Lord, that's loud.
Weddington Chase, back in, when we first got the park, worked with us and they got that sidewalk access put in.
Okay, so
It provides ADA access. And we've made some recent improvements on that, but I've heard nothing recently and my emails went unresponded to.
well, that's okay. That maybe,
Would that not be a subject, Austin, maybe for the HOA president's meeting?
You're more than welcome to talk about it. Yeah, if that's something they want to talk about, I'm more than happy to be on the receiving end of those comments.
Yeah, that's about the only way I think we'll get a response.
so I haven't talked to either of the gens, because thank you for reminding me to go down there, because I forgot. But I went yesterday, and you say it's overgrown, but all the stuff that was going to bloom has been mowed down too. It's like this tall. And I get why we do that. The paths are definitely full of whatever. A lot. Like in a year, that's kind of amazing. But the gravel must not be deep enough. But the cedar trees look okay if you like cedar trees. Birds like them. But yeah, there's dead trees, definitely. The only thing I could think of, Bob, was to use some of the trees and shrubs that we've gotten from the tire dump pickup and add back in some native tall things, not just, we don't need little tiny plants down there. We need big, sturdy, strong things, because that is some full-on sun, and that soil is not nice.
Would white oaks work?
Red oaks, I think, would work better in an urban environment, that be more tolerant of pollution and.
We certainly got the trees to do it.
Yeah, so not now, obviously, but we could use some of those things, and even some lower story things too. So we could kind of reforest it. You would make Gavin Austin and Andy Cranfield and Keith O'Haron very, very happy if you did that. That's just something to think about with plants that we have. The only problem with that is watering, because there is no water there, and you're looking at the watering team probably. You're looking at the watering team. Notice I'm bringing you all in. But you'd really only have to do that the first year or so, and you'd be okay, I think. So that's something to think about.
I
A
was
little,
speaking more to the fact, I don't want to invest in something that's going to require a great deal of maintenance down
no,
the road.
no. I never did. Yeah. I don't want to mow it.
It's been discussed.
Yeah, I know, yeah. And I know we talked about a dog park at some point. It is way too small and scary. Maybe my dog doesn't listen. That's probably
I
that.
know Kim was not in favor of the dog park, and once you go out there and you look, it just doesn't make it.
Well, the fire ants alone would keep me from taking a dog out there, seriously. I was like, tiptoeing around.
That too.
Yeah, but that's easily fixed too. That was the easy thing I could think of. I do need to find out who is in charge of the trees over there. They are completely over-mulched. I know this isn't really part of our agenda, but that will kill them eventually. The mulch is like this deep. It's a volcano. They just leveled it off so it doesn't look like a volcano. It is. I dug one of them out, and I dug this deep before I even got to something that didn't look like mulch, and I still wasn't getting a root flare. So I did call Keith about it. So he might go do some, I said, you'll do better calling Publix than I will. So I guess it's all Publix trees. I don't know whose trees they are.
Actually, on the park property?
So part of them are on the ones that are on the Pocket Park property have zero mulch on them. I mean, they're like clay, and like tired-looking, sad clay. They look really bad. And then the other ones that are around the edges, maybe?
The landscape on the perimeter, there's some that
And it
are
looks like they-
obviously in the area that they keep and mow.
Yeah,
as
because it
well.
looks like they just put mulch on. The mulch looks beautiful. I mean, it's still really fresh looking. but it is this much too deep.
Is it like on the other side of the parking lot?
Some of it's on the other side, some of it's on the pocket parks. Yeah, but some of it's on the pocket park
We
side.
need to relocate some of that mulch to our own trees.
Well, truly, it will strangle them. It will make them extremely weak, and then we'll have a really hot flash, and that'll be the end of that. So, and because the trees look nice, they're good-sized trees, and they'll really start growing in a couple of years, but not with all that mulch on them. And I didn't know, I wasn't gonna go guerrilla garden all of them. I didn't have time. That would take a couple days.
Yeah, and I would say that my thoughts kind of being in line here as well is, I think when we initially talked about this pocket park, and for those that don't know, it came from the donation of Publix as part of the requirements of the planning process and so forth. But, you know, it was really kind of intended as a more natural and native thing, I think. Kind of to the extent where, hey, we're putting in this big shopping center, it's good to try to keep a little pocket of something that's very natural there. And that's what I think is kind of the intent behind it. So just from a maintenance perspective, it's small, so it kind of stands out, and that the effort you'd have to put into, you know, would be a lot more than really the size that you're affecting versus other areas or other projects within the village. But I think if we can we had to cut a lot down because
Oh, the
it was
privet.
just a mess at first with the
There was a
privet and other
privet
stuff.
hedge in there the size of this room. I mean, no joke. It is amazing that that's gone. I've got pictures of it, because now that you look at it, you're like, where was that? It is amazing that that's gone. It looks completely different because of that.
But from a no water and
Yeah.
a soil perspective, the best luck we're gonna have with anything continuing to maintain itself there is some of the native stuff, you know?
So if we did some of these native plants, and we can pull some out of the garden too, the park garden, because we get overrun with a couple of Itea and Calicarpa. We get overrun with those, so I can put some of those over there. And if we keep adding mulch, that soil will actually get a little better.
Yeah.
10 years from now.
And I think to some degree, what you'd be looking at is not, you know, we could keep an area that's mowed for some benches and picnic tables. I think it does serve for people that are getting lunch at Publix or something, might be a nice spot for them to be able to go. So to maintain right by the parking lot, maybe a mowed area that has a table or two there. But then the other parts, as far as, you know, where the trails are, or, you know, the little trails that go, you know, they do have a base now for the trail itself, so maybe it's just weed spraying there, and then maybe a strip mode on either side of it, you know, and then beyond that, everything else kind of maybe naturally filling out.
And I know that Bob has said he doesn't think he would ever eat lunch there. I have seen people do it, but once you plant if we do what we're talking about and it kind of grows up some, it would be a nicer place to sit, because you would kind of be in between all those trees behind you and hopefully something in front of you that would kind of make a little buffer. Yeah, I like that buffer.
Well, I'll go with the board, but I would challenge any woman here to go out there and eat by herself.
Oh, I would do it.
You would?
Yeah, but look at me. I look
can't imagine most
mean.
women going out there and eating by themselves.
I have tools in my car, too, my truck, too, so.
But if we want to put a picnic table in, and if the committee wants to do that, that's fine. I just don't see this going to get used a lot, and I don't want to see a lot of maintenance down the road
Yep.
put against this. I think taxpayer money can be used better somewhere else. So if we can put in trees and make it, you know, environmentally friendly, I'm all for that.
And I would
We can do
maybe-
a fall planting and make it nice.
Yeah, I would maybe move toward mulch instead of grass, because you don't have to mow mulch. You just keep adding it. And the more you add it, the less you have to do to it, right? I mean, over time.
Yeah.
So that's something to think about.
Okay.
I wouldn't want to mow it.
So do we want to put on a project list, a fall planting for the pocket park?
I'm for it.
That we can
And I
all-
can start getting plants together. All of
I
us.
think that'd be worthwhile.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, any other comments, questions regarding the pocket park? All right. Next on unfinished business is discussion of trails priorities for the GO bond.
name's not on here.
Sorry.
You want me to talk about it?
Yeah, you asked me to
Okay.
put it on there.
So, well, they probably really need in order to do this is the trail list of what hasn't been done yet and what we as council have prioritized for the geo bond project
I think if we put that in the packet.
for them to look at before we have a educated discussion about it.
Kim, is that in the model spreadsheet?
Say that again?
Is that in the model?
Yeah, but it probably needs to be, they're probably gonna want to,
If it's on the V drive, I can pull it up and share it on the screen.
they're probably gonna wanna look at it like this. And then, sorry, I've got Marvin Day stuff in here, sorry. I didn't realize this was me, sorry.
I can pull that plan up on the screen.
And then this.
I can pull it up. Just give me 1 second.
And I mean, I can kind of walk through like what council has said, this is what we think are our top priorities and what we think we can get done in a fairly reasonable way, I guess. That's not even the right word.
All right, let's.
Okay. Okay, you want to do it this way, Austin? You think this is the easiest way?
At least they'll be able to see what trail you're
Okay.
talking about, where it's physically located.
Okay. So some of these have actually already been, so the orange dot is, so this is the master plan that they did a couple of years ago. So this is, so they basically threw everything on there that they thought that we might want, we could get it for connectors throughout the village. So what council did, because I think some of these are wish list, way longer, like 10, 15, 20 years down the road. So what council did was, let's look at it, let's figure out what we think would be really good, I'm gonna say easy projects to try to like pick off. And so what we did was we went through this, and right now C2 and C3 have been done or are in progress of being completed. I think maybe C2 is in progress right now.
That's Amber Meadows Toll.
That's the third phase, I think. So I think it's been budgeted and is planning, and they're working on the survey. So I think that one's, we've basically like checked that one's done.
So that's gonna be part of the GO bond?
No, because we've already
That's
funded
already
it.
in,
We've
okay.
already funded it. So our first, if we're kind of going from the top, starting at C1 and kind of working our way down. So we're gonna leave C1 on there, which, do you have the spreadsheet handy? So we can say how much that,
I can, do you want me to share it on the screen or just have it on my screen and read
just
it?
have it on your screen, and when I ask, tell me how much it is, because I don't have that.
I've got it. Just give me 1
Wait a
second
minute,
to look
hang
at
on,
it.
I may have it right here. Okay, no, I do have it, okay. So C1 is about 187,000. So we're gonna leave that one on there. The next one that we are looking at is C5. C5 goes from Marvin Road and Joe Carr down to the Mecklenburg County line. It's a really small little connector section, and we thought that that might be good as Mecklenburg County starts to develop the 6 mile not 6 Mile, yeah, the 6 Mile Creek on the other side. It might be a nice connector to get there. And we can get easements pretty easily with the Brantley property running down that side. And I believe that C5 is about 300,000.
It's
And
380.
is it?
Spreadsheet, hold up. I got, no,
No,
it's
it's
301.
301.
I was looking at the one above it.
Okay.
Yeah. It's 301.
Which I think is probably going to be less than that, because I think we can get the easements for cheaper than what they were thinking originally. So then so then you've got the green dot that is going to run from Wheatfield up to, what is that, Saddle? I think.
What's the number, Kim?
It's not a number, it's a green dot. It's part, it looks like it's part of the, it's proposed, but it's not in the, it's not in the grant money.
Oh, it's the one from Saddle up Marvin Road and on to Joe Carter Wheatfield.
Correct. So obviously, we're leaving that one on there to finish the loop, but I don't know how much that is, and,
I want to say it was 900. It was one of the more expensive.
yeah, but it's not on here. Like, there's not a number on here.
Kim, that goes up Saddlebrook, is that correct?
No, it's gonna,
Doesn't go up Saddle, it goes past Saddle on Joe Carr,
it's gonna,
up to the corner.
yeah, it's gonna.
Talking about the green dotted line that extends from where C6 crosses up to C5, turns right on Joe Carr?
Correct.
So it goes all the way out to Marvin Road?
Yeah.
It would just, it is Martin Road, and
It-
then turns right at Joe Carr and ends at Wheatfield.
Thank you, yes.
Okay, so
Yes.
it doesn't involve Saddlebrook or anything?
No, it does not involve Saddle at all.
All right, got it.
But it's on Marvin and Joe Carr, but I don't know that we have a dollar amount on that.
That one is S1. It's either, let's see, that's S1.
Is it this S1B remaining portion Wheatfield to Saddle?
Yes, it is on here, actually.
Is it S1B?
It's S1B remaining portion is what we have it labeled as. And it's around 950,000.
Okay, so just make sure that that's on the spreadsheet, because I don't,
It's on here.
Okay.
It's on here, and they've got it broken up into a couple
Perfect,
years
okay.
for funding.
all right, so remaining that, so then we will have the full loop once the grant money finishes the rest of the Marvin loop. So then we're gonna move over to this corner here at Waxaw Marvin, coming down, basically all down Waxaw Marvin. So we had originally taken it to the S2 star and stopped.
That's the Henry Nesbitt.
Right. But we talked about it in our meeting and decided that we would take it to the entrance of Providence Estates. All, yeah. It really helps those neighborhoods that are over there, Oak Brook, Providence Estates, Valhalla, and get some connectivity to the high school, to the middle school, to Sandy Ridge. We're also hoping that it will be a encouragement to maybe the Chimneys to come in, because it'll get connectivity there. And even if the entire neighborhood of the Chimneys doesn't want to come in, we're trying to at least get their common area into Marvin, because right now, for the road portion of the GO bond, like the physical road portion, DOT is not going to let us have in front of the Chimneys because it is unincorporated Union County.
Yeah, one of the things that I would say is that we do have existing easements all the way down around the back of the Chimneys.
Yep.
And, part of the numbers, we kind of, cringe when we hear these numbers, is that most of that has to do whenever we're doing something with state DOT.
Right. But if it's ours, then it's easier
Correct.
to do and get those easements.
But I was wondering if at least a large chunk of that S2, right, could be not necessarily developed out in the state DOT, but through the existing easement that we already have along the South Carolina line behind the chimneys, and then
So-
come back up behind the elementary school, because
Yeah.
that would take a large chunk of the state DOT piece, plus it would also kind of break it up into kind of a natural part of the trail.
Yeah, so we had talked about that. It's kind of twofold. One, there are some houses on Waxhaw Marvin on the other side that are in Marvin that would be nice to have a walkway that they can at least continue to travel down Waxhaw Marvin. And two, yes, there is the existing behind, but until the chimneys want to come into Marvin, I'm not sure that even though we have the existing easements back there, that we want to continue to improve something that's not actually in Marvin, and we're giving something to constituents that are in unincorporated Union County. We talked about the cost to upfit it. It's a question mark, because I know that there are easements and there is some sort of trail back there. But then we would also have to obtain C13 and do work there to finish it. So that's why we decided, and again, if we can get the chimneys to at least get their common area in along Waxhaw Marvin Road, then we're not having to deal with DOT in order to put in the sidewalks, because those would be our roads. So it's not on our list, but it's not upfitting that area is not on the GEO bond list, but it doesn't, anything that we're not putting on the GEO bond list doesn't mean that we can't do it. It just means that's not what we're asking for money for through the bond. And I would love to upfit that for the chimneys, but I would love for them to come into Marvin in order for it to make sense for us to do something for a neighborhood that would then be in Marvin.
Yeah, I guess I looked at it more as not necessarily something for the chimneys, but that's providing the connectivity. I know when we tried to do some grants a number of years back, one of the most important things they talked about was just connectivity in general, you
Yeah.
know. But I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
I would say that I think we do already have some easements in place on those C13 ones.
Okay.
I just don't know, the elementary school might
Okay.
be the only piece of that we
Okay.
don't, but I think Cedar Hill Farm and the Grissettes and
Have already
I think
granted
there's
some
one others
Okay.
that have
And again,
some of
just
those
because it's not on the GEO bond list doesn't mean we're not ever gonna do it. It's like, what do we feel like is the biggest bang for our buck, what we can get the greatest connectivity, like, right out of the gate.
And I thought that might be the way that we could save some money by pulling it off the DOT, kind of putting it back there.
Yeah, but again, if
either way.
it's our roads and we're not having to go to them and ask for, like, we can grant the easements
Yeah,
and not have to,
It would also be two different trail types.
Yeah.
The green is concrete sidewalks, and
Yeah.
the one behind the chimneys would be natural surface.
yeah.
Yeah.
So,
and there
Okay.
essentially is no trail there anymore.
yeah, I'm sure it's all mostly
it's just
overgrown. Well, that's why I
overgrown.
said, how much is it gonna cost us to kind of upfit it and start over, so.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I'll bring that back to, council, because, I mean, we're talking about this at pretty much every meeting, so I'll bring that back and just talk about that again.
Does anyone have any questions? By the way, we went through a lot in the last few minutes. Just might be a good point to ask.
I'm not finished, though. You want me to finish?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. I'm like, I'm not done yet. So then we're gonna do C15, which is Bonds Grove Church Road down to Providence. We are not going to do C16. That runs behind Belgrove. We've talked about it. We're not getting rid of the easement, but we've talked about it. It's in a flood area. They have internal sidewalks, so and they don't want it, So for right now, we're not gonna build it, we're not gonna get rid of the easement, we're gonna still have it, so if at some point we wanna come back and do something, we can.
But theoretically, if you were walking on that trail, you could connect back over on a sidewalk.
Yeah, but it just runs behind Belgrove, you could just walk on the sidewalk.
Yeah.
They don't want it in their backyards, they are adamant that they don't want this. So I'm not sure I wanna spend money on something a neighborhood doesn't want, when they have a sidewalk that
Yeah.
literally runs parallel to it.
Yeah, but the only question would be whether or not, in the future, can we still connect to C-18 through the sidewalk? Because right now, there's just cow pasture at the end
Right.
of
and
the
so-
cul-de-sac, and
Right,
so.
so if we ever get C-18, we still have the easement of C-16, and we
Right.
may want to build it. But right now.
Right now,
for
no, I know, they
this-
don't want it at all.
They don't want it, we're not gonna do C-18 right now, so there's
Right.
no point in
Trying to
asking for
connect to
that
that.
money and connect it, when they have a sidewalk that connects
Well, once you go.
right in
Well,
front.
I'm even wondering if even C-18 would ever be necessary, I mean, not C-18, but
Yeah.
C-16 would ever be necessary, because if we can just, in the future,
Yeah.
just join the gap between Belgrove's sidewalk at the end of the cul-de-sac and C-18 through that cow pasture, because I don't know how
Well,
that works.
And they have something at the end of that cul-de-sac that I don't know if it's an easement or what it is, but they have it in case they ever want to extend that road, if they ever get the land
Behind it, yeah, the cow
behind
pasture
it.
behind
So
it.
there is some sort of easement there or access there, right of way, I'm not sure what it is, but there is something there that we may be able to utilize. If it gets to that point that we ever get
Right.
C-18, which.
Right, and so that's a future thing. I'm totally in agreement, though, that the sidewalk with
Yeah.
Belgrove is totally sufficient.
Okay. Any questions there? Nope, okay. And then. Uh-huh.
Was density of population a consideration in terms of trails and usage? Because as we get further out to the unincorporated part of Union County, outside, close to our border out to Providence, it becomes a usage issue. How many people are actually using the trail?
So when, you mean,
Consideration as you're putting this together, in terms of, as a priority to
yeah,
putting everything together?
yeah. Yeah, yeah. We're trying to get the most connectivity for the most people in Marvin, which again is why we extended S2, because we kind of felt like that bottom portion of the village was just kind of hanging out there with no way to get anywhere, no walkability, anything. So yes, it is. C-17 is Providence Road. I mean, we have money set aside for it. We're not, I believe that's on the spreadsheet,
Which one was?
C-17.
C.
It is, but I'm think we're asking for money in the GO bond for it,
So
because
yes, you do have C-17?
I just can't remember if we,
Yes, it's on there.
okay, that's what I thought.
Do you want me to give you the price?
No. And then we added C-20.
That's huge.
It's huge, but it stops at Providence Road. We did that to try to get connectivity to the park and to connect one side of the village to the other side of the village on Newtown Road. It's a big number, it's a big chunk, but we're also hoping that it will be some encouragement to some of these neighborhoods that are off of it.
When you say big chunk, in terms of cost, what are we talking?
What is it, Austin? He has it.
So we've split C-20 into C-20A and C-20B for future reference. C-20A runs from the corner here at Village Hall, across Marvin School Road, all the way past the park to Providence. That's 1,472,600. And then the C-20B is the remainder from Providence to the end of Weddington Chase. That's separate.
Which is not
included.
on the GO bond. It's to Providence Road.
You do have it listed on here as on.
No, we don't.
It's turned on here.
There's actually 3 sections.
Oh, it is 3. I apologize.
A goes basically to the park, B goes to Providence Road, and
That's
C
what it
goes to Weddington Chase.
So it's actually 2.4 million from here to Providence Road.
Yep.
My mistake.
The C part, I don't see making much sense at all, because we've got the connection to Weddington Chase through the pocket park, which essentially they just walk across the parking lot to get to that corner.
I agree.
So that part of C,
Nope, it's not on the geo bond right now. We're, again, anything that's on this master plan this was the wish list when they were going through it. This is where can we do it, what might make sense? And then just because we're saying no right now doesn't mean we're getting rid of any easements. We may not do it in the future, but this is not what we're putting our efforts towards. We're trying to prioritize it. What do we think makes the most sense? The roundabout at Waxhaw, Marvin, and Bonds Grove is on the geo bond as well. And then I think that's the only roundabout that we put on there, because that's the only one that we have solid numbers for.
You talked about doing roundabouts in the future at Marvin Road and Joe Carr and Marvin School and Joe Carr.
But they're not on there.
They're not on there, but we do have some easements at the Marvin Road and Joe Carr intersection.
Yeah, we have easements there on the Brantley property. So that's what council has said that we would like to propose to the community for the bond. I will bring back the chimneys, where it says existing, and the C13, and just see what they say there. Do you guys have any other comments, questions, concerns?
Looks good, Ken. The only question I've got, what is DOT's intent, near-term or long-term, relative to widening of roads, either Waxhaw Marvin or Newtown or Marvin? I mean, the traffic now is just, it's significant.
Yeah.
I'm just wondering whether or not there's any intention
Haha.
of widening, and how that might impact our trails.
I don't think they have any intention on widening anything anytime soon. They can't get Providence Road widened, which was supposed to be done in '24. When I first got on council, they were saying we're widening it in '24. Now we're hearing '29. So I think side roads have zero shot at doing it. Because because the village is talking about taking over connector roads, Waxhaw Marvin Road, Marvin School Road, Marvin Road, Newtown Road, that will then be on us to do that once we get these roads. And that's part of what we're trying to do in the bond as well. So then we can control the speed, we can control trucks and get 18-wheelers off of Newtown Road, off of, our little country roads, and we can make it really a pain in the butt for other municipalities in unincorporated Union County to cut through here. So I don't think they have any intention on doing it, especially now that they know that we would like to take them over so that we can control them, which is why I keep saying, they'll be our roads, so we're not gonna have to worry about DOT with easements.
While I've got this pulled up, do you want me to go through any of the prices, any of the taxes, anything like that?
Not until we have it totally nailed down, and then then I'll bring that, I'll update everybody. I just wanted to kind of get everybody's thought on this, because we're not 100% sure how we're gonna, if this list is definite, and then how we may split it up in 2 different sections, portions. It's not the right word.
Could we get a summary of what, the priorities? Because I think.
I was gonna ask, I was listening to all of that.
Yeah.
But to recap, maybe? Okay, so C1, C2, and C3 are already done, so they're not on the bond.
C1 is not done. C1 is on the bond.
C1 is on the bond, okay. So C1 is a possibility on the bond, and then we're talking about closing the loop of S1 with the bond,
Adding C5.
adding C5 to that, okay. And then we're also talking about S2 all the way to the end. And then the other thing in here is C20, A and B.
And C15,
And C15, where is C15?
Bonds Grove Church Road.
Oh, yeah, okay. To complement the S2 completion.
Yep.
Okay.
C20 to Providence.
And then C17, what's the status on, we mentioned that one, but that's,
It's
it's
on the,
blocked in here as programmed and it's part of the Providence Road stuff.
that's
and-
it, that's what we're waiting on.
Okay,
Because we're not gonna do anything until they widen the road, and then
Right.
they're gonna put it in. We're on the hook for, I don't know how much money for that.
I guess the important thing to me is, as I'm looking at this, is I'm in favor of those things being on the bond because, I mean, in the green here, we've got that as spine and then the orange is all connector, but between this mix of orange and green, what you've just described, maybe with the exception of C5 and C1, these are all linking north, south, and east and west. And I think that makes a very good priority. And they're also really big projects that we'll never, ever get to on a smaller basis.
No,
So,
we won't.
um,
And the numbers that we have been given through the master plan are already well inflated. They did that on purpose when they gave us these numbers. And what we're hoping for is that when we say, okay, we've got the bond, it passed, we're ready to go, we put it out for bid, and because we are doing it in such a large scale, we will get, you know, a better price for it. So these numbers won't be as much, because we'll get a,
hopefully.
yeah.
No, I mean, I get that's the plan. I mean,
Yeah.
inflation's been
Yeah.
a little
But
unpredictable.
but these, I mean, they inflated these like
A lot.
a lot.
Okay,
Like a
cool.
lot, so.
Okay.
I believe we've also, I believe we're going to talk to this vendor to have this map updated too.
Okay, yeah.
Because it is a couple years out of date now.
Yeah, we do, yeah, we did, yes, we need to have it updated so that we know what has been done, where we are.
Yeah, no, I'll just restate that, I mean, with the exceptions of C1 and C5, which are kind of outliers, but maybe easy to complete, I think it is really important to form this basic scaffolding of connecting east, west, north, south, and especially the southern part, because, you know, if we're talking about Heritage Park and everything's gonna be all walkable, well, there's like a good half of the village that cannot walk anywhere. I mean, it'd still be a long damn walk, but,
But you could ride
but
your
it's not,
bike.
right, it's,
I mean, you could.
it's not even theoretically possible unless we get
Correct.
this stuff in.
Correct.
So,
Yep.
yeah, I'm in favor of that
And
short list.
and it gets connectivity to the schools down on, you know, in the
Well, as I
southern
say, there's a
portion,
lot of
and, I mean,
population
there's a lot,
An activity down there with the schools.
yeah. Any other questions? Nope, okay. Yeah, we'll try to come back with a, kind of an updated list, like, council needs to see it too, because it's, I mean, these were my, like, drawn on, marked out, like, what do we want the first go around? I'm like, no, wait, we added that one back in, so, yeah, so there's a lot, so, but we are definitely still planning and asking, and so,
You
yeah,
guys are set to
we'll keep you
those.
posted on it.
You guys are set to finalize those, I think, this month.
Yeah, I think our work session, we're supposed to have those finalized for the referendum, and then we've put out to bid, a company to market the bond to the community education-wise, so that we can give people the facts and let them decide on what they want to do. Yep,
And your referendum would be in March of next year.
yeah, we're trying to pick the election we think we're gonna have the most turnout, and we decided that would be the presidential primary next year. So, because we want the most response that we can get, and we don't feel like the municipal election's gonna get it done, so we thought the primary for the presidential would be have the most bang for our buck. All right, thanks.
That was a good discussion.
And Austin, so you'll get us kind of an updated map and synopsis?
Once they finalize it, we will share that information, or we'll have it at the next PRG meeting. Are you good with that, Kim? Yeah. Cool. The next PRG meeting? Mm-hmm. After you guys finalize it, we can come show them again.
Yes, I'm fine with that, and then by that point, we should have more solid dollar amounts and how we're gonna break up the issuance. That's the word I was looking for. I couldn't think of what it was. The issuance, because I don't think we're gonna issue the chunk all at one time. I think we're gonna do it in two. So it would affect the tax increase differently if we did it in two separate ones.
item is new business, and 2023 Marvin Day Youth. Jill. And Jill?
Hi. Okay, so first off, thank you to every single one of you because you all participated in Marvin Day, served, volunteered, committees, everything you guys did. We couldn't have done it without you, so thank you. The other thing I want to say before we kind of dive into this is I'm definitely wanting to hear all of your feedback. I'm going to take great notes because our subcommittee, which is funny because 3 of us that are in this room are on the subcommittee, but we have to do it anyway. We're going to debrief later today, and with all staff too. So I want to be able to give your comments and your feedback and add it to the list. But what I want to say is, contrary to what everyone might think, I'm actually really excited about the future of Marvin Day because I feel like we've had 2 solid years of what I would consider to be collecting data. And I think based on what we tried year 1 and what we tried year 2, which I really feel like both of those were sort of like testing different things, I feel like I understand what would have to happen for year 3 to have this event really make sense with what we've learned and what would make the most sense. So I have a lot of suggestions and feedback to give, but I want to hear from all of you as well. Overall, I would say from everyone I've talked to, everybody seems really pleased with the event. We had some things that went well. We had some things that didn't go so well. There were hits, there were misses, but overall, which that was all expected as well. Overall, I would say council is happy. So that's always like, you know, if the happy wife, happy life, like happy council, happy staff, right? So if they're happy, I'm happy. And they are happy. I've talked to every single one of them. Obviously, everybody wishes we had more turnout. But again, we'll continue to massage and tweak this as we go forward to kind of address those issues. And I really do think that we're going to have a solid plan to make it work. But I wish I could have seen and been at everything that was going on, but when I'm running all over the place, I can't. So I'm excited to hear everybody's feedback because, like, I have no idea what happened at the disc golf. I have no idea how your nature and garden talks went. I have no idea how the animal exhibits worked out because I was just too busy running around. So I'm going to kind of stop talking and would just invite you guys, especially in the different areas that you sort of did and served in and volunteered in, to kind of give me your thoughts and feedback. I will say I loved having the marsh exhibits and table there this year, and I would love to do that every year because I think that was so cool. But awesome. I love it. And if you want a place to store them, where our staff is going to meet to kind of come up with a plan for storing all of this Marvin Day stuff, so we can probably take it off your hands and keep it safe until next year. But yeah, I mean, I'll just turn it over to anybody who wants to give their feedback first on what you experienced, your area that you served in at Marvin Day, your overall thoughts of what you saw for the day. I'm here for it. I'm open and got my pen ready. So let's go. Let's go.
First, I just want to say thank you again to the staff. I mean, you guys were amazing. And something that I saw this year, more so than the other years, was, or last year, a lot of the other board members, too, were participating and volunteering, and it was great to even meet some of those folks that we don't even meet that volunteer their time and stuff like that. And overall, what I would say is, like you only see the pieces that you see, but I looked at it as all of the individual components of it were really put together well, and you know, everybody really enjoyed. I think the biggest challenge, part of it goes back to the foundational issue that we have with parking and shuttles, right? And, you know, my perception was the early part of the day and through the afternoon, we hit it out of the park. I think during the day, the shuttles weren't really as big an issue for families and people bringing their kids and things like that. And they were well utilized, and it seemed like, things were going gangbusters in the afternoon. I think with a lot of young kids and young families and stuff like that, though, we might need to condense everything if we were to try to do it like that again, because that wait and that kind of lull in between, even if we had stuff to do, people would have been petering out because the overall thing was just too long a time, to really keep people through the whole day. And that's why we lost the food trucks and things like that. And then the other thing that I would add is when it came to the evening, I think the shuttle was just a lot less appealing for something in the evening. My thought that day was, I'm glad I'm volunteering and I have a pocket pass, because that line for the bus after fireworks, I don't know how many we could carry with the 3 or 4 shuttles that we had. But trying to think if we really did have a big crowd, how long it would take. And I think about, even going to Carowinds for fireworks or something and trying to get out of a parking lot. Imagine that on a shuttle. So in some ways, maybe, and that's something that we'll have to think about. The kind of disassembled Marvin Day like we had last year in different areas throughout the day versus trying to get everybody at once and having to do the shuttles at the park. Yeah.
Good feedback.
And I'm not sure if it's even possible to do it at the high school again. I know calendars became a little funny this year, and that's why the date's where it was and why we had to shuttle. But, I'd say we have to look at all those options open again next year. But those are just some of my impressions.
Thanks,
Where did
John.
You worked at the bouncy house?
Yeah.
Yeah, so how did, for kids only, I'm very annoyed by that, but, so how did it work?
Yeah,
You had a lot
no,
of kids
there were a lot of kids. Like I said, during the afternoon, at least from everything I could survey, there
From
was
like
a.
noonish on, you mean literal, like early afternoon, because we quit at 2, right?
It was
Well, you
closer to 3, I think, that the second shifts, and at that point, you kind of noticed that there were a lot less people, and I don't know, I know it was announced at some point that the shuttles would be stopping for a period of time, and I think when people might have heard that, it was like, oh, we better get going then.
It was about an hour pause in the shuttle.
I think they announced it as an hour and a half, though.
I think they said 3:30 to 4:30, but that was
Okay.
something I didn't know going into Marvin Day. I didn't know there was going to be an hour break in the buses, so I don't know where that miscommunication came from, but did someone tell you you couldn't go in the bounce house? Because I would, you, no, you're not.
I could have gone in.
Yeah, you could.
Okay, next time, okay.
At least the obstacle course one, maybe not the
The
toddler
big one, yeah, not the under 5.
Okay, they didn't have those when I was 5. So as far as nature, thank you, I don't probably need that, but yeah. As far as the nature walks and talks and all that, I had 2 people come to the garden. And I finally gave that up around, I was there for 11 o'clock. I popped back over for noon. There was a woman taking some photographs, and then later on, I talked to somebody in the park, and she said, I went over there at 1. Well, you were the only one. So that just didn't seem a good use of my time. So I took my handouts and I accosted people. He said I was evangelizing. I don't disagree, but it's a good message, so you're just going to get it. So I just went to people and gave them what I was going to talk about, and they all got the whole 9 yards. So they got it all. As much as, I always start with butterflies, because nobody in the world has ever said they hated a butterfly. So, and if they do, we just ship them off somewhere bad. So I would start with that, and only one person said, no, I'm not interested in planting a butterfly garden. I mean, like, I talked to 50 people probably. So that was pretty good odds. I thought my marketing was working. But I feel like I got really good response from, I made a map of existing trails, which ended up being about 6 miles, by the way, I didn't know that, existing trails in Marvin, and then the next ones, at least from the website, it wasn't this stuff, it's the stuff that's next in line to come down, and I had that a different color. And I gave them that and just talked to them, this is where we are, and they're all like, oh, I live over here, and I got a lot of good press off of that one, too. So I feel like I educated myself, but I educated some people about the trails that we already have. So that actually worked better than I thought it was going to. But I just went door to door, basically. They were all in a good mood. They were eating pizza, so they would let me talk to them.
So based on that, do you feel like if you were to do this type of a education series next year, would you want it to be in the barn, like next to marsh, or with a table and tent outside, and kind of like the urban forester people were, or?
So maybe just walking around and talking to people
Okay,
is the better
you like
idea.
that too.
Because I did talk to the forestry people, and they're like, nobody's coming over here. So one of the things that they missed out on, if you've seen them anywhere else, they have this giant Smokey the Bear, I don't know, 15, 20 feet tall, I don't know, it's an inflatable thing. And Andy said, we didn't bring it because this was supposed to be about planting trees, not about fighting fires. And I said, no one cares.
Yeah.
And we were all kind of saying that together. He said, we're bringing Smokey next time. Because he gets, you can see him across the, world. So that works out really well at the Heritage Festival anyway. You can see him across the trees and stuff. So that would have brought more people to them. They just needed something a little bit more exciting to get people over there, because once Gavin starts talking, then it's all fun. So I think they suffered a little bit from that. They were sitting back a little bit from where people were walking, and they didn't have some flash. So I think they needed a little bit more flash, and maybe some trees. Literally trees in pots or something, if that's what they were going for.
And we originally had them in the barn next to marsh, but
Yeah.
they chose to move outside.
Well, they're probably always going to want to be outside,
Yeah.
right? Because that's.
I didn't know they were bringing like a whole tent and setup. I just was told they were going to have a table in the barn, so I was kind of like, okay, cool.
Yeah, so Smokey would have made a nice difference, and it would have been nice with the bouncy house and all that stuff. That would have been cool. So next year, if you can talk them into coming, that would be a cool addition. I think that the Marsh, what Marsh did with all of the new posters and stuff, I think that worked out well. It would have been really great if we could have had our bat person and our coyote person there. That would have been great. But we had posters, and that was all right. And I saw people reading them, so they got their little bat coyote education. And it's a lot to ask people who live way out to come in for something like that. But it would have been good. The snake guy was the king of the place. I mean, people, every time I walked by there were snakes wrapped around humans.
Yes,
I mean, that's not for everybody, right, Austin?
Yeah, Austin wouldn't
No.
try it.
No, he says.
Not within 15 feet, no, I'm not getting near it.
So you can see Austin make this wide berth around the snake dude. Yeah, around the barn. He wouldn't go in the barn. No, so I thought the snake guy was fantastic. The ducks were so cute.
They were cute. They were a little messy. I will say that
They're ducks.
animal exhibits were a huge success. Jay had a great time. He would be willing to come back again in the future.
That's the snake reptile
Yeah, the
one.
snake guy, Jay Bell. And CWR did really well. I think it introduced a new concept with adoptable animals, which people did not realize that you could adopt animals from them. They were just a little bit messy, but we were able to clean it all up pretty quick. I mean, when you have waterfowl, they poop constantly. So, but we had it right on the edge. We were able to clean it all out when they left. So, the crowd control was awesome. No one felt overwhelmed at any time, which was good. I didn't leave the barn much, so I don't really have any perspective to offer about anything else, because I was so worried about the animals being overwhelmed that I was kind of just on top of everything in the barn. The only thing I would expand on Christina's point is I felt when I talked to Keith and Gavin, they said they really didn't get a lot of traction outside the barn. They were in an odd spot with the kids' stuff. Nobody came by, and I asked them why they weren't in the barn next to us, because I feel like the people that were waiting in line to hold snakes and talk about the ducks were looking at the Marsh posters. And there was this big open space next to Marsh where I think they could have gotten more traction next to us.
They were set up there, and they wanted to be, they came to me there and said they wanted to be outside, so they picked their own
Themselves.
spot.
Well, and I asked them, and then they said we should have stayed in the barn. So I think that
I
they
do
made a
feel like if
mistake.
they had, and this is always true when you have a booth, get on the other side of the table and talk to people
Yes.
like this instead of I'm behind my table.
Sitting
you know.
behind it, yeah.
And they were just, I think they had kind of gotten sad about it at some point, but,
Because they weren't getting any attention.
yeah, but you gotta get out and, yeah. So I would walk by them and say, you're just gonna have to bring your message out to the people.
Yes.
Yeah, and the sad thing about them wanting to last minute switch outside was we really had a lack of space, so we kind of had no choice but to throw them up right there in the kids' area because there was no other spot for them at that time.
That's where they asked to be.
But that would have been, personally, I think that could have been a good spot. Smokey would have made a big difference.
Smokey would have made the difference being near the kids' stuff, but they realized their mistake, because they told me when we were like getting ready to pack up towards the end, they knew that they had made the mistake to move out there.
Well, and I do love the idea of them incorporating like a fire safety talk too, because, I mean, it does get dry. We do have a lot of debris and combustible stuff, so I think it's great to just kind of educate people on that.
Do we do a post-interview with people that attend Marvin Day?
We will, we'll send out a survey, yeah. Well, you talking about residents or the vendors and people that were? We should be putting together a survey. We did last year, I believe. I think so.
But I'd like to remember sending the people to come, and because we have an exhibit, 1 year doesn't need to have the exhibit to follow.
Oh, for sure.
So, because I think as we grow Marvin Day, I think there'll be more demand for people wanting to participate. And so.
You mean like as vendors or, yeah.
As vendors and displays. I just think exit interviews with the residents is what I'm saying.
I think we'll definitely send a survey out. It'll probably go in the residents' newsletter, and we'll kind of ask some questions like, did you attend? If yes, you know, here's a series of questions. If not, why didn't you attend? You know, pick some reasons. Did you not know about it? You know, what was it the date? We'll just kind of try to gather some data and feedback. I think that's a great suggestion.
Grandmother survey and a couple people. Everybody that I spoke to loved the shuttle concept. They liked
Loved it?
They did.
Wow.
They liked
Okay.
it. Love's a strong word. Well, they liked it. They liked the shuttle concept, and they also liked the fireworks show
Yeah,
at
it was a
the
great
park,
show.
of the people I talked to.
Did we get any feedback from the people doing the shuttles on any estimates of how many people actually were shuttled?
Not yet, but
Is that something they kind of kept track of and were
I hope
expecting?
so. I would
Yeah.
love to be able to get some numbers.
One of the things that, and this goes back to the forestry guys, and I'm not picking on them, but just front of my mind. One of the things that we're doing with the Heritage Festival this year is if you will promise to do some kind of interactive activity, whatever that means to you, then we'll give you a discount on your booth cost. Our booth costs are ridiculously cheap anyway, but, so if they had had coloring pages, anything, so anybody, I mean, even the New York Life guy, if you've got something that a kid will stop and do, then mom's gonna hang out with, you know, and then you start a conversation about the weather or whatever, and it goes from there. So that might be something to just remind people to have something to do. You know, if you're an artist or something, you could actually be doing your thing there. I mean, that doesn't work for everything, but just something that grabs people's attention like that, that might
Yeah.
help.
And I definitely had those conversations with our vendors, like, just to make sure you have, one, don't stand behind your table. If you're not getting traffic, go out and talk to people in the crowd, hand out your cards, ask them like, hey, what brought you to Marvin Day, blah, blah, blah. And to get the most out of the event, I did encourage them to have games or food or raffle items or something. And of course, ask the DJ to just keep encouraging people to visit those vendors and see what they were giving away or raffling off. It definitely worked at the 5K at the health fair. Every vendor had something, whether it was a raffle or a freebie, tchotchkes. I mean, people were going around and signing up for like everything. It was
Those
pretty
guys
cool.
are pros. I mean,
Yeah.
yeah, they do that all the time, yeah.
Were from a feedback perspective from the vendors, I know, the food trucks left in the second half of the day, but did the sponsors, those vendors and so forth that were there during the day, did they feel good generally about the day traffic?
So I still have to survey the actual sponsors, but the two that I have spoken with, because they were the most prominent, was Jones Homes and Lenane, our gold and platinum, and they were very happy with the day. So if they're happy, I'm happy. I haven't spoken to the other sponsors that were kind of set up. Those were most of our silver sponsors that were set up amongst the picnic area. I'm going to survey them as well. I think some of them had better traffic than others. Like, every time I went by, it seemed like the European Wax Center from Publix was just kind of an empty table. But I don't think people really knew what they were, what they do, and I think they needed to not sit behind their table. I think they needed to be talking to
Well,
people.
I was unable to be there for the evening events. What was how was the turnout for both the bands and, sorry?
So the turnout was not great.
Fireworks, yeah.
The turnout was not great for definitely the first band. And again, this was something where the whole purpose of us having a first band was we were hoping that it would keep people around and they would not leave and come back. Again, we tried it, we tested it. In my personal opinion, I don't think it really worked. We probably had maybe 50 people on the lawn kind of for the first band. It definitely picked up for the second band, but not as much as I would have liked to have seen. And I would say by the time the fireworks went off, it's hard for me to estimate, but I think we had a few hundred people for the fireworks. But again, I think we're going to hit our sweet spot in year 3. I really do. With all that we've learned from, like you said, John, we were disassembled year 1. Year 2, we tried to be more assembled, but that created a parking and shuttle test, right? I think we've learned a lot. We've tried multiple things, and I think there is a hybrid sweet spot to this that we will land on.
Well, the only comment, it's surprising, but it's absolutely true. A lot of people, believe it or not, didn't even know about Marvin Day. And for some reason, they certainly didn't put it on their calendar. Because if we had 50 people show up for Coconut Grove, which is a great band, that's surprising. But we've got 2 totally different demographics we're marketing to for this event. The morning, you're basically marketing to families. It's youth activities, it's so on and so forth. And then you transition into more of an adult activity. And how you go about marketing to both of those, I think is critical as you go into year 3. And I think it'll be dramatic improvement in recognizing that, hey, we got 2 different people we need to market to. But I think the band idea was a great idea. And like I say, the people I've spoken to that went really enjoyed it. And speaking from Marsh, at our table, we got a lot of people come by.
Good.
We really did. And we probably added how many, Christina and Jen? We probably had to
Every
our
time I came
email-
by, you said, I've got another yard.
Yeah, we probably are going to have 5 or 6 new certified wildlife habitat yards as a result in our community and outside of our community. And to our email list, we probably got 10 people now that we can market to that we didn't have before. And for us, that's a big deal. It really is. So I think you guys did a great job. And being next to the snake guy, I want to make sure we're next to the snake guy next year because he did a.
Yeah, we asked first.
Yeah, and I give kudos to Jennifer, but he did a fantastic job. I mean, he really, the kids were just, the place was packed. He did a great job. So congratulations to you guys.
Thanks. I will say, as far as people not knowing about Marvin Day, there were some hiccups on our side for a number of factors. one of which was a sponsor who was supposed to supply banners and signs who ghosted us last minute and resulted in a big delay in the banners going up. A second was just turnover and just lack of staff. I mean, this event is such a beast. I can't even put that into words that I think are understandable. And it's with multiple staff turnovers during this Marvin Day year. I think staff did the best that they could with the time that they had while trying to stay on top of our actual jobs. But I think definitely, and also, I don't think anybody wanted to create, like, we definitely scaled back the marketing outside of Marvin because this is a event that we want to focus on Marvin residents. I believe that was the direction we got based on what had happened at Halloween and what had happened with some other events. And this is Marvin taxpayers and, Marvin residents. We really want them. Of course, we welcome people outside of that community, but that's who we really wanted to target. So we did less marketing and advertising outside of Target, outside of Marvin, especially because of the shuttle buses. I don't think anybody wanted a situation like a Cheer Wine Festival where you're waiting in line. Austin waited 1 hour just to get on a shuttle bus. And that would have been miserable, and I think it would have killed our chances of having a successful year 3, honestly, if people had a miserable shuttle bus experience. So it's sort of walking that fine line between we want people there, but we also want to try to focus on Marvin residents. So we did utilize our social channels and our newsletter quite heavily for promotions of it, and then banners up around town, but less screaming to the other communities that we were doing this.
We had
I
some
would-
pages that are shared.
I'd like y'all to consider, and I understand your viewpoint, I know you already know mine, but I'm going to raise my point of view again. Many people view Marvin as an exclusive community in Union County. And it seems to me, as we talk about possible annexation and being part of the Union County community, that we market to it. Mm-hmm. We have approximately 7,000 residents in Marvin. If you look at the opportunity, the number of people that, let's say we get, which would be extraordinary, if you got 5% of your population to come out to an event, which is extraordinary, you're looking at a small group of people. Mm-hmm. So I would like your consideration to expand it beyond, because the thing I want to, it's like if I go see a band, I want to be part of a crowd. I don't want to be one of 50 people hanging out under a tree in this vast area. People want to be with other people at events like that. And like I say, as we talk about wanting to be part of Union County, we want to annex and so on and so forth, and have a realistic crowd come and participate. I just think from a marketing perspective that we should consider expanding beyond Marvin. And I understand why you're doing what you're doing, but you all put a tremendous amount of effort, both labor and dollars, against this activity. And it's a wonderful event, and the more people that come, the more people talk about it the subsequent year. When you only have 50 people or 100 people show up and they say, well, how did it go? Well, nobody showed up. Well, that's not what you want to hear. So as you think about next year, and I hope there'll be many more years, I'd appreciate your consideration on that.
Mm-hmm. And I do get that you're balancing shuttle, because if you had to wait for an hour for a shuttle, no, that would have been terrible. But so there's a balance in there, and that's
And work to
delicate and
that.
tough.
I mean, that's
Yeah.
solvable.
I get that.
I'd like to ask Jen, we had the artists over at Firethorn, right? How'd that go?
It did not. So we had a very lovely setup. The ballroom at Firethorn was fantastic. I would say there were a total of 20 people over 6 hours that came to any of Firethorn that day. Not even the members of Firethorn. Like, I was talking to people who, like, a couple of the vendors were Firethorn members, and they were like, yeah, none of the people that I even know who are members are even here today. So, and that wasn't necessarily a failure on the part of Marvin Day or the, you know, the draw of the art. I mean, we are gonna have to do some soul searching to see if there's even a market for, in Marvin as a community, to come see art, because clearly whatever marketing happened and how that played out, the art wasn't enough to draw people in. Which is fine, because in my mind, the way Firethorn was, and so based on what they put into the event, they had 3 food truck type vendors. They had a couple of like play putting green kind of things set up and some cornhole, and they had stocked the lobby with, you know, champagne and orange juice and stuff to make mimosas, and they were free. And they clearly had planned for some attendance, which for them did not materialize either. So it wasn't just the art, it was whatever they had planned and saw happening there, like, there was nothing, absolutely nothing. And then there was a little bit of weirdness because, you know, so being it was completely dead all day, you know, one of the vendors asked me at one, she's like, do you want me to stay? And I was like, you know what, do what you need to do. And so we all started cleaning up at about 2 o'clock because obviously nothing was happening. And as we were cleaning up at 2, even though the event was supposed to have gone to 3, we were already getting pushed out of the ballroom because they had a wedding at 4. And like they were like racing around us to like put up the tables for the wedding in the ballroom.
You feel for those guys too. My
Yeah,
God.
and so I mean,
Oh,
like, so like their staff was like kind of harried and like,
freaking out.
you know, because as we're cleaning up at 2, they're like, yeah, we have a wedding in 2 hours, and like they were already putting the chairs down on the
I can't
lawn, and
believe
so
that
I'm rushing
never
out
came
to
up.
get like pick up our Marvin Day signs because like I like 2 of our biggest arrows, like, you know, were right behind the chairs that they were setting up for the wedding. So I'm like rushing around to get those out because I'm like, nobody wants that in their pictures.
I can't believe that all our conversations with them that never came up. By the way, we have a wedding in the ballroom at 4.
Yeah, well, the wedding was going to be outside, so it was going to be a little bit, but they obviously needed to set up tables and everything in the ballroom. So obviously the reception probably wasn't going to start at 4, but still they needed to have that space ready to go. And so it was kind of funny that like, well, if we'd have actually had business going on and stayed till 3, and it takes us about an hour to break down our stuff.
Yeah, they would have been in trouble.
Not to mention the total logjam at the entrance that even just, you know, 6 or 7 artists, you know, created getting their stuff in and out. And we packed up and left, you know, kind of in waves because, you know, like one woman left a little earlier and then, you know.
So it could have been worse.
It could have been much worse. And so if it had gone as planned, I don't even know what would have happened at the end.
Yeah, let me ask you a question. You know, this is 2 years, I guess, that we've done it within Marvin Day, and I think it's fair to say that neither year was particularly successful on
No.
the art garden side of things. And the reason for that, I think, is there's so many activities that it's very difficult to separate yourself out from all of it and promote it like we need to promote an art or a garden tour.
Yes, I had extensive
question-
conversations with Lambeth and with Verna and a couple of the other artists about
Question
that.
of, or recommendation or thought about it is, you know, at some point in the year where the calendar's not full for Marvin, that we separate and have an art and garden tour separate from Marvin Day, but have just an activity for our community where people can come and go and see the gardens and art. And I think the turnout will be slightly better, and I think the logistics issues will be less. And I don't know the feeling of the artists, but that would be my recommendation moving forward, that the art garden just comes out of Marvin Day.
I'm
Do you agree or
Or
disagree?
joins the park.
or joins the park.
There's so
Well,
much room there in front of that stage that was just empty, that they could all been in there.
Well, so here's the interesting thing is, as a vending artist myself, I would have been fine with those crowds, and I have, you know, attractive things to bring in kids, like you were saying. You bring in the kids, the parents stay, and I sell a lot of stuff that the kids are like, oh my God, I want that, and then it gives me an opportunity to talk to the parents. But some of the other artists, so for example, Lambeth and Verna Witt, who are, you know, residents who have participated both years, were very opposed to being anywhere near kid activities. Because I guess last year Verna was actually at the park. And the impression I got talking to her about how that went was that just they were completely sidelined, overwhelmed, you know, whatever, distracted away from. She's not the one who was doing the demos. She is a ceramicist, though.
Marvin Gardens. Is she Marvin?
Yes, Marvin Gardens, yes. And so, you know, she was just like, yeah, at some point I just started handing out clay to the kids because, like, this was not an event where people were interested in purchasing art.
Okay, I get that. Then
Right?
Go back to his idea, which is not.
Which, you know, and it can go both ways. I do my kids' school, and I actually have a great day at my kids' school, you know, and people are there for bounce houses and potato sack races, and I sell great. So it really just depends on what you're selling, and it can go both ways, and it depends on the artist's personal preference and how they market and what their demographic is. So I know that of our immediate local artists who have been participating, number one, we're right now in danger of burning some bridges because they've participated twice for nothing. In fact, I would propose that we maybe even refund or a partial refund of their deposits since this was so dead, which is something I guess we'll maybe take up in committee. We'll have to analyze whether or not we need to have, or we should even continue to try to incorporate art into Marvin Day. I think that Efford Park, if we continue to do it at the park, wherever the crowds are the greatest is the most likely, but if it's during the day, it continues to be a very kid-centric thing. I don't know that our immediate local artists are, at least the population that we have coincidentally, are gonna want to participate in that.
I know Lambeth won't,
Ex-
because
yeah.
she doesn't
Well,
do
it's
any-
also, it's too hot for a lot of
she
them.
doesn't do anything for children anyway. Hers is very upscale.
Yes,
pottery.
exactly. And
And then you've got, who's the lady with the pottery wheel? I can't, and she's a great lady.
Kat Jackson.
Kat, yeah, she's great.
Well, she very much wanted to be in the park because she really liked the interactive stuff. So it was really
The
very hit or
wheel
miss.
and,
So it just depends on the.
It depends on the artist, and it's just statistically, coincidentally, of the people who've been willing to participate so far who are legitimately local and Marvin residents, we're kind of, there's only a couple who would be interested in participating.
I
Now-
have to kind of move us along just because you
Yes,
have
I
one
know,
more
we have
item
some.
and
Yeah.
our staff is going to also debrief on some of this, but I do agree that there's going to be multiple components of Marvin Day that we as a staff and as boards have to wonder if whether they should continue. The Village Hall meet and greet that we had was another one that we're all, it's probably on the chopping list, you know what I'm saying? So it is great feedback. I'm sorry the turnout was low. I had heard that at Marvin Day. I had asked, how's it going at Firethorn? And I'm sad, I mean, I guess what I will say is I'm glad to hear that it wasn't that the turnout at Firethorn was amazing and you guys just had no turnout, because that would make me feel awful. I feel terrible that Firethorn had low turnout at their event as well, because I know they promoted the heck out of it also, and they spent a lot of money. So,
Yeah.
but at least it wasn't like they were slammed and you guys were just overlooked. But
Well, and that was the question among the artists that we were sort of having as we were looking around. And I said, and I told them that we went back to the debriefing, that I would try to find out whether or not, because we didn't know what was going on at the park, right? And so if there was an amazing turnout at the park but nothing here, then that's that's a data point.
yeah,
If
exactly.
there was no turnout at either place, then that's another data point.
Exactly.
And so I promised that we would analyze that.
Okay.
And so we'll do that in committee.
When is your debrief, your
Our
committee?
subcommittee and staff debrief is in 30 minutes.
Okay.
Which is why she wants to move us along.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Thank you all again. I appreciate all your feedback. I took lots of notes.
Well, I'm going to give you some more, but I'll just send it to you.
Thank you, Jill.
Anything else that you can think of, please feel free to email me, and I'll continue to gather your thoughts and data.
All right, next item for new business is discussion of any fall and winter event planning. So I'm not sure with everything going on that we're prepared for that yet, since we're just getting over the last one. I know we're going to have National Night Out, certainly, so that's one item to get prepared for. I forget, but there was some talk where now it's just 2 alternative dates. And I think we had some discussion a while ago in meetings as to, you know, would we consider one versus the other? But, because normally, I think the original date
It's the first Tuesday in August.
is the first Tuesday in August.
There is a backup date in October, and it's for states where it's very hot and humid in August. Texas is one. They always do it in October. Wesley Chapel does theirs on the October date as well.
Is that on a Tuesday as well? Because the big thing you get into
I
there
believe so.
is then you're on a school night and, you know,
The only other thing to think about is we do our trick or treat event the same month. So you're having two large events very close together, and that's
Yeah.
difficult for planning purposes.
yeah, I would say that I think that when we have done it in the summer, while it can be crazy hot, that we have had good experiences with it, especially keeping it kind of later in the evening, and then in conjunction like with a movie or something like that, we've done in the past.
No, when did we do it last year? Was that not August? Yeah, no, it was
It was
my birthday.
August.
Yeah, we were so busy doing your job.
Yeah, but, so I think, you know, probably we'd have better luck because you're also competing with all sorts of school sports and stuff like that once you get into October as well. So I would say, we try to stick with August. Now, Ed's back, Officer Swan, who used to do a lot of it, and I know Mason and others have done a great job in the past couple of years, but, you know, here we are, our meeting in June, so we'll really only have July to kind of coordinate on that. So I guess if staff could talk to Ed, I know he's spearheaded it in the past.
So I would, let's not look at Jill. Let's look at Tyler. Tell Tyler
Okay.
this, because Jill is finance. She's done. Jill is done with any event planning, et cetera, et cetera. So
Well,
Tyler needs to get up with Ed, and I put this on the agenda because it is June, and we are going to have an event in August, and we are
Yep.
going to have one meeting in between. So that's why I was like, we've got to start talking about this. So Tyler is going to be who needs to talk to Ed, who needs to talk to us, and figure out what we need to do. We can thank Jill for all of her help, but she will now just be the money lady, so she can approve or give us or deny, so,
Well, and I'm happy to kind of
no, you're not, don't say that.
debrief with Tyler
Oh,
on
yeah,
what
you
we've
can
done in
debrief
the
with Tyler,
past and
but-
what worked and what hasn't. We can do that offline. I do think because
Oh.
Marvin Day took up this whole 6 months, that this is going to have to be a much scaled back national night out than what we had last year. We're not going to have time to get sponsors. I don't think we should incorporate a movie. I think we just keep it 6 to 8. We focus on law enforcement, which is the purpose of the event. We keep it short and simple and sweet so we can still have it, but less work on staff and less scrambling last minute. And now that we have Tyler for next year, we will have the manpower to be able to have meetings starting in February to plan National Night Out for August.
But you have 3 burger flippers. We're professionals.
Well,
We
that,
actually have a hot dog lady that wants to come and just sling hot dogs the whole time, and we have an ice cream lady who wants to come. So we might have food taken care of.
well, and I guess that would be the question. In the past, the food was typically donated. The officers would, you know, check in with Publix and Harris Teeter. So, I guess without a movie as a draw, you know, how,
I don't know if the movie was a draw. One challenge with the movie is in August, it doesn't get dark until
Until,
almost
yeah.
9. So the Disney movie that we started playing at 9 o'clock, you could barely see it until 9:15, 9:20. And then we had not a ton of people sitting there to watch the movie because most people were like, this is way past my kid's bedtime. We're not staying here till 11 to finish this movie. So I just don't know that if it was October, it might be a different story. But in August, I don't think a movie works for National Night Out. The staff had to be there really late, and the kids, the attendance wasn't great because it was so late at night.
I mean, didn't we do a bounce house last year, which I think we could do again? I mean, that's not that hard, that's pretty easy to do.
It is easy,
Do a
yeah.
bounce house for the
Yeah.
kids, have, you know, if Tyler wants to reach out to some vendors to see if they want to come out, I absolutely think if the hot dog lady wants to come out and the ice cream person, they can do that, but we can also check with Publix and Harris Teeter if they want to donate buns and hamburgers and condiments and et cetera, cookies. We went through a lot of cookies.
So I will say, we still have almost $300 left on the Publix gift card that they donated to us for Marvin Day that can be used to purchase stuff for National Night Out. And last year, like Harris Teeter was a hard no. They turned away the deputies every time. And even, I think Publix did not. I think Publix just gave us a $100 gift card towards food. Nobody seemed to step up the way they had done in 2021. That year, they donated all of the food, but this past year, we were out buying a ton of it.
Okay.
So,
Well, and we had a lot more people show up to eat it too. I mean, you guys had to go back and get more food. That was,
yeah.
I guess the tower, we've got the friendship tree that we're gonna start in July in terms of planning.
What?
So I'll be working with Tyler on that.
there's no hot dogs connected to that.
No, they'll be really planning on that, and at our next PR&G meeting, I'd like to add that to the agenda, Austin.
Can do that.
And then I would go ahead and add trick or treat, because those are going to be your two big ones.
Well,
And,
Trick or treats and
the
animal.
Santa
and
Christmas.
the tree lighting. So what do we want to do with Santa? Doesn't seem like many people came out to see him driving around. We had thrown about a breakfast or a meet and greet before the tree lighting. So we need to probably, I wanted to put this on here so that we can start these conversations. It's been a long meeting, so we don't necessarily need to dive into it except for National Night Out, because that's our next one. But we should absolutely put those 3 events on for the next meeting and really start diving into those. But we've got to get this stuff nailed down, and, we're so excited to have Tyler.
As far as National Night Out goes, you can call any of us and we will tell you what we know and help you however we can, since we're running out of time on National Night Out. It should be fairly straightforward.
All right.
All right. Next, item E, review of action items.
Well, I'll add the upcoming events to the next agenda. We've got your feedback on Marvin Day. We're going to bring you all more information on the GO bond after council finalizes their selections for the trails. For the pocket park, it looks like for now, we're going to proceed with natural plants and mulch, should you all decide to do anything different. And that's pretty much it.
All right. Any ongoing items we need to follow up on?
Kim,
I'm looking.
she's getting ready.
You can change the bourbon tasting event to Tyler.
That's something they talked about last year, but we never.
In fact, I'd like to bring that up and put it on the upcoming agenda.
Okay. Yeah, but we can change who is in charge of that. We'll take that off our list, Bob. You can, I would say, the Marvin Creek Connector, you can say almost complete, because we have the easements and we're working on building that one.
Almost, okay.
I mean.
Do you want to keep the pocket park project still on hold up top since,
Yeah,
okay.
and then,
You guys did your site visits.
yeah, but that was, yep. And then I don't know about the Bermuda grass in front of Village Hall. You talked to Andy about that? Nope, okay, all right.
No, we haven't really talked about it. We planted the stuff in there, but I don't think he really has any directive to take it out. He's talked to Matt about mulching under the tree, because Keith confirmed that we really need to get the Bermuda grass out from under at least the tree. And so I know he talked to Matt about mulching, and I don't know whether we decided we were going to round up the grass and mulch on top of it, or we were just going to smother it with mulch, or what. But they've had the conversation.
What would you guys decide on that? He's saying, I don't want to talk.
Mulch it. He did say we can round up what's there. So we're gonna mulch it, and so all we're waiting on is to order the dyed mulch to get it put out.
Okay. Are you gonna kill all of the Bermuda grass or just what's right underneath the tree? Because I think this board would prefer if you killed all of it and planted plants.
Yes.
That's the idea.
Okay, that's the
I
idea.
was gonna say, the board, so Matt, just so that you know, the board here wants all of the Bermuda grass immediately around Village Hall and all of the beds gone, 100%. I think that the tree thing got, the area under the tree got moved up because Keith confirmed that that's bad for the tree. The other areas don't have that, and since Andy's been doing this landscaping project piecemeal on kind of volunteer basis, I think that if we can get Matt, if that's okay, but Christina kind of didn't want it to expand into a staff issue, to kill all of the Bermuda, that would be great, but I don't really care how it gets done.
Well, if you're killing.
Or
if you're-
Andy, when he strips the other plants and replaces the soil in the other beds, supposedly in fall,
Okay, he can do
he
it
can
then.
take the
Okay.
grass out then is another
All
possibility.
right, but you're gonna kill around the tree and, okay.
So, yeah, so the tree got moved to a priority, the others, I don't know how they're planning on getting done.
Okay, I'll find that out.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, I'm good.
All right, the next is board member comments. And, go ahead, Bob.
I'd like to recognize Jill. I think she has done a phenomenal job on behalf of Marvin with Marvin Day and taking over the finance.
I'm surprised you weren't crying earlier.
And I know it was, and I recognize it was a staff effort, but I know it was led by you, and I think everybody's very appreciative of what you've done.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jill.
Thanks, guys.
Jen, anything?
No, thank you.
No.
Yeah, Bob said it all. Good job. Oh, I guess, thank you for you guys showing up. Yay. Looking forward to that. Thinking of projects.
And I just have one comment. As many of you know, I've participated in either the committees or the board of adjustment, the parks here for almost 20 years now. But I am actually going to take the step where I wanted you guys to be the first to know. I plan on continuing in this role, but I am going to run for council. So I did just want to share that with you folks because I work with you guys, all, day in and day out. And if I am fortunate enough to be selected, then that might create some changes here that would give you guys, folks, time to think about. So I just wanted to share that with everybody. All right, anything else? All right, do I hear a motion on the table to adjourn the Village of Marvin Parks, Greenways, and Board meeting here at 10:41 on June 6th?
So moved.
All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Christina, thank you so much.
I need to write one more thing on this one. Because, okay, so I'm gonna tell you, I rooted these in water. They've been in my house, in water. They've got little tiny roots. I just put them in here last night. So they need to be taking, they need to be in the shade. They can be outside now. They need to be in the shade, but that's why they're a little bit leggy. She could probably, once they sit in here for about a week or so and they look okay, she could probably pinch out the middles.
I need to talk